welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. We bring you the right information to empower you, the SME entrepreneur. Tonight on the show, to the influencers. First up is PCI, and on the other side for break is Sattviko. Most Indians at this point do understand what we mean when we say security of their data, but research shows that 85% of Indians don't have the bandwidth to either access digital payment systems or the security really that comes with it. I spoke with PCI about just that, understanding how Indians and SMEs are keeping their data safe and what they should do. Listen to this conversation with Nitin Bhatnagar. Nitin, thanks for coming down to a studio and talking really about something that's top of mind for everyone as we speak, which is data security of financial transactions. It's top of mind globally, and it's top of mind definitely in India as we become more and more digitized. So it's good talking to you today. My first question is really for you to break down what PCI does. You're a global council and you're treated as the gold standard when it comes to data security and of financial transactions. Let's start by talking about what PCI does.
Sure. Thanks for having me here. And PCI Data Security Standard Council is being formed by the 5 payment brands, which is Visa, MasterCard, Amex, JCB, Discover. So it's a long journey. It's a 10 years back. Visa, MasterCard used to have their own standards, right? Sure. And lately they thought of bringing in the council into the picture, and that's where the payment card industry data security standard council has been born, right? And our focus largely was on the development of the standards, and having the training programs developed, and also making sure if these programs can be used by the businesses, which may be a small, medium enterprises, or the large banking financial institutions, or the merchants, whether it's a retail merchant or an e-commerce merchant. So that's where the standards body largely focus on, and we create our resources for these businesses to cater the need of the cyber frauds which have been happening. So
you are a not-for-profit organization, and you work across the world, like we're saying, and you're working closely with government bodies, government organizations like the RBI in India, for instance, to ensure that the standards that you're coming up with are being adopted by industry. What perhaps has helped you become, that sort of base standard when it comes to financial, security of financial information and data?
Oh, I think, see, the payment card industry standards are largely, let me for the layman term, let me try to put it across for the users is, if you're storing, processing, and or transmitting card holder data.
Sure.
You need to, comply with the requirements of PCI DSS standards. For example, you may be going to a shop, on a retail shop, swiping a card. As a user, you may not be knowing what is happening at the back end, right? But there are servers, networks being used to have the transaction done. And that's where the PCI Standards Council comes into the picture. The standards comes into the picture to make sure these infrastructure, these environments are undergone these audits. The standards are being taken into consideration. And when it comes to the involvement with the government bodies, regulators, various associations and the businesses, and want to make sure that we encourage these businesses to adopt these standards in the country.
Okay, so you were just saying that you do a lot of trainings, for instance, with the RBI, let's say. Just talk to us a little more about that. How are you working closely with them, and what sort of training, what does this training involve when it comes to ensuring, again, financial security?
We do webinars. So webinars is a step where we can create education, we can create awareness, tell the users about the importance of having the PCI standards being implemented. And more importantly, having implementation, it has to be an effective implementation. So it's just not having some technology being procured or try to put it across in a and get it implemented. It's all about how effectively you are implementing those standards. So we try to give them the sufficient knowledge. We try to train them. We are doing a couple of trainings in coming few months in Delhi, which are going to be around the internal security SSS that the businesses should have. We are going to have qualified security SSS training, where we are trying to build the gap that we see in the cybersecurity professionals in the country.
Sure.
So that's where we try to give them education. We try to tell them what are the standards, which standards should be implemented by which organization, in which businesses. Maybe banks may need some different certification, merchants may need different certification. The service providers, which are working with these banks, which is issuers or the acquirers or the merchants, they need to have those standards.
Before we started this interview, you and I were talking about contactless payment, which is now perhaps going to become a large portion of digital payments as well. How do you as an organization, how do you as the head of this organization and this committee here in India ensure that you're staying constantly on top of the innovation that is happening?
Based on the feedback that you get from the industry, and you get involved. The industry has to get involved, right? We have seen the applications going up for the participating organization. We have seen the interest coming for to become a strategic member. We have seen the difference in becoming differences in. We are seeing a lot of things coming in where people are asking us to become affiliate members.
Okay.
Right. So we are seeing the difference now, and now with this, when the community comes together, when we see, and they will start giving us a feedback, right?
Sure.
And based on those feedbacks, we can influence the standard. The regional involvement is very, very important.
Most of India still doesn't have good infrastructure on any counts, on any front. And that also translates into the infrastructure which is needed for digital payments and a huge digital payment push. How do you as a council really view that? What are your views on that?
See, basically, we as a council, we largely focus on the development of the standards, creating programs, certification, and getting the resources ready for the industry to get them implemented in a right fashion. Right, so that's the largely that we focus on. And when it's come, as I rightly said, when we start getting the feedback, we get to know where we currently today stand. So we have created or developed those programs to basically meet the requirements of the industry. So typically we have to keep evolving, right? So industry has to evolve as we grow, and when it comes to the infrastructures point of view, I think the organizations, the businesses have to really pick up now, and it's a high time because the cyber criminals are just behind us.
Sure.
So because for example, let's take an example now. Whatever the breaches, learnings that we have seen in the past is that the three major the flaws that we have seen is, one is the weak passwords being used by these organizations, or they have an unpatched softwares which has been installed, or they have not updated their patches at all, or they have an insecure remote access to the system. So these are the three typical scenarios that we have seen in the past, and which is also creating a lot of concerns. And once the hackers get an access to these, typically through these three modes, and then it becomes a nuisance. So we have to come up. We have to really buck up in terms of making sure the infrastructure is up and running.
Okay, so is this typical maybe of small businesses in India? These three common, the three problems that you're saying in terms of weak passwords, etc. Is this typical of small businesses? Through this interview, perhaps, what would you like to tell them about stepping up as far as their data security and financial security is concerned? Yeah,
I think so. First thing they have to do is that they need to make sure that they have the right resources in place. So the Standard Council has a program for QIR, right? So it's Qualified Integrators program that we have is that they help them in basically installing the right patches. They help them in reviewing the weak passwords policies. They help them in seeing whether they have any kind of an insecure connections, remote connections. So they help them in actually deploying the payment systems securely.
Sure.
So that's the critical thing that the small businesses should focus on.
Okay, my last question to you then perhaps is what next? Like you said, there is a growing awareness in India when it comes to meeting data security standards and financial data security standards. And as more and more innovation is happening in the payments industry, what next for you at PCI?
So PCI is, as I rightly said, we are coming up with our India Forum in the country, and which is the first ever forum which is happening in this part of the world. It has been happening in US, UK on a global basis, but this is the first time that the council is coming to India. And we are trying to bring in all the business, we're requesting all the businesses to come and join us in terms of making sure they understand who we are, what we do, and how the standards can help them in securing the payment data.
Sure.
Right? And in the same, we have seen currently 12 countries already been participating in this India Forum, which is really a great achievement that we are looking at this point of time, and look forward from India participation as well, so that we can all together fight the common cause, which is the cyber frauds.
All right, and wish you all the very best in that, Nitin. Thanks so much for coming to us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Time for a break. On the other side, Sattviko is disrupting the food space. What is this brand all about? More when we come back. Just stay tuned. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight our second influencer is Sattviko. As disposable incomes are becoming more and more for Indians, the kind of demands and therefore the innovation that brands are doing to meet those demands and needs are increasing. And one such brand that we're talking to tonight is Sattviko, which has disrupted as far as a very specific food niche and a market niche is concerned. I spoke to them about what really their learnings are when it comes to the space, as also what the way forward is looking like. Listen in. Prasoon, thanks very much for coming down to our studios to talk about what is increasingly becoming, different segments when you're looking at the food market, looking at consumers who are becoming more and more, discerning when it comes to what they're consuming, what they're wearing, what they're buying, what they're using. Let's talk about Sattviko and where the idea for that really came about. And before that, maybe just give our viewers a sense of what really constitutes Sattvik food and a Sattvik way of living.
So I think if you look at the new consumer trend today in India, where we see a lot of these millennial people who were born after the 80s, they are mostly those people like us who have moved from tier 2 towns, tier 3 towns, and now living in the urban cities of India. Now, most of these people, they are really that new bunch of population which is more proud about their upbringing. They are more proud about their entire traditions which their families used to follow at their homes. Sure. So if you look at the lady of the house today, she wants to raise her kids the way her mom was raising her. So now in this new age of consumer, if you look at what these people are really wanting to consume, I think what they want to consume is those entire traditional food stuff which their families were eating when they were kids, but into very modernized avatar. They want to consume stuff in the way that they believe it's the right way to consume. Sure. But again, that traditions of India has to be there. So I think what Sattviko does is that Sattvik food is nothing but the purest form of food. So we picked this entire philosophy of pure food from Ayurveda, converted into something called a new age format of Sattvik called Sattviko. And what we are trying to bring to the current consumers that we serve is the entire traditional recipes of India into a very modernized way, but with the purity of the Sattvik at the core of it. Okay. So this is what we actually bring to our consumers. Okay, so give our viewers a sense of how long you've been in the market. You also did explore the Jaipur market from what I understand. So, how many locations perhaps are you present at? So I think the company has really grown very well in the last 2 years of our entire journey. This is my second company. So we started this company in 2014. But initially the company was entirely based on a restaurant-based model, which we later on pivoted to an entirely FMCG company. So today we don't own restaurants, but we have presence with our FMCG products across the top 10 cities of India. We are now present across all the large format retail stores, most of the smaller stores across the major cities of India. We sell to almost 1 million customers every month. And the range that we have today actually goes from chips to namkeen in very different formats, but that syncs with the philosophy of Sattviko.
Okay, are you primarily then talking to a consumer who's urban, based necessarily in a metro, well educated, and most importantly has the kind of pricing power which I would presume your products command?
On that question, I think I would say we want to be an aspirational brand, but at the same time we want to be an affordable brand as well, which means that we want to become a part of the daily grocery list of a new age modern household. But why we want to be restricting ourselves in the next 1 year, 1.5 years to the top 20 cities, urban cities of India? Because the communication to these consumers in the modern cities is easier as compared to going deeper into the rural towns and semi-urban towns in India. Sure. And with the kind of resources we have, with the kind of depth we want to achieve in the next 2 years, I think the entire focus was to will be to build a brand entirely around this new modern age consumption, from where we would want to take it even deeper and across the country in the next few years.
Okay, but do you see a market for products like yourself, aspirational products like yourself in a tier 3, tier 4?
So yes, today if you look at a consumer, he has a lot of options. The problem with this consumer of new age, he wants to be emotionally connected with anything or everything that he or she consumes. We have launched stuff like khakra chips, for example.
Sure.
So from an entirely from an entire snack of tradition, from the traditions of India called khakra, we created a very large category called chips out of it. So today people don't want to have fried potato chips. We give them something called baked wheat chips and we call them khakra chips. Now this emotionally also associates with the traditional upbringing of people from India.
Okay.
So I think around these concepts we have created different products, and that's how we are able to catch, really relate to our consumers and catch their fancy.
Okay, going back to two things that you said. One is that this is your second venture, like you mentioned, and also you did experiment with the restaurant format, decided that perhaps that was not, where you wanted to be, or that was not really working for you. What has that experience taught you?
Our first venture was called Tech Buddy. We were into online education space. I think we did very well when we trained almost 100,000 students across India. We had an awesome platform, a very new age awesome platform. But I think we were a bit early in the market because
Sure.
internet on the mobile phones was still very early during those times, 2010, 2011. So I think one of the things I kind of learned from my first venture is that you can have an awesome product, you can have an awesome idea to solve the problem, but at times if you're early in the market, if you're not aligned with the market trend, then you may lose out on the entire opportunity. And I realized that there was a scope of creating a brand from India
Sure.
that appeals to the larger global population in the next 10 years. So that's where we saw the gap, tried to fill it with the entire concept of restaurant initially. But there are certain challenges with the restaurant business as well. We did very well in the restaurant business. We had around 10 restaurants across Delhi NCR and a couple of more cities. We were doing well in the restaurant, but the entire challenge to scale the restaurant business
Sure.
kept us limited with that entire scale. So while we were trying to explore how do we scale the business, this entire packaged food range was more introduced like an additional business within the restaurant. And gradually, when we launched them in the distribution, we found that people were finding it much more, relatable, and also it was more accessible in terms of restaurants were very limited to that geography. Now this food was available in any kirana store. That's where we thought that this is a much bigger and much more scalable opportunity. And last 2 years, we have done very well for us. I think we have grown from a company which was doing the restaurant business and pivoting to an entirely new FMCG model. And now we do almost 20 crores a year of revenue as well,
Okay.
just in a span of 2 years.
Okay.
So I think
innovation is another thing I want to talk about. From what I understand, there aren't too many other players. You don't have too many other competitors for the kind of products that you really have out in the market. So how are you ensuring that you're constantly innovating? How are you getting feedback from your consumers in terms of, whether the products are working, not working, and also giving them products where you're essentially creating the market for them?
So I think, as I said that when we decided to start Sattviko, when we wanted to create a more tangible business, we also thought that technology should actually enable the business. So today, in the last 1 year, we have built a very interesting technology. We call it Jigsaw, Sattviko Jigsaw. Now this entire technology is what will help us to disrupt the entire distribution, including the consumer feedback that today comes in a very real-time basis to us. So when we are selling a product to a consumer, we are actually collecting a lot of feedback in a real-time environment from that person. And our customers are not just the people who consume them, but the trade and the distributor is also a very important part of the entire customer cycle that we talk about. So this entire Jigsaw platform that we have created, it's an AI-driven platform that has now worked very well for us. It is helping us to really be very fast in the approach towards disrupting the distribution. Plus the feedbacks are very real time in
Sure.
the entire approach. So that helps us to innovate a lot on the core of it.
Okay, there's always a perception that products like yours, which serve a very niche market, whether it's vegan food, whether it's Sattvik food, are more expensive than other products that are available that are perhaps competitive in some sense. Your products are also slightly more expensive than your nearest competitors. Has that perhaps been a challenge? What's your thinking on that? Would you, look at maybe price rationalization over a point of time?
I think we are very aggressively priced because we kind of position ourselves as a premium brand, which people would aspire to buy. But if you look at the price point, we now have products at 10 rupees price range, which actually in terms of grammage give a very good competition to the potato chips, the fried potato chips that are available in the market.
Okay, speaking of brand, how are you, communicating what you stand for, how you're communicating what really Sattvik food is about, and what perhaps is going into your products?
So I think first is the purity of it. So at Sattviko, we have a very, very clear vision that anything that we do has to be pure. It has to be Sattvik. So when we do a product, I think one of the things that we clearly say to ourselves that we might not be able to do a product because it doesn't fall in our philosophy, but we would rather reject the product than doing it that way.
Sure.
So for example, we stay away from a lot of stuff which people would say sells in the market, but we believe that because we can't sell it under Sattviko brand, we don't want to sell it. So I think first making it clear what we stand for is the first and most important foundation of a brand. So Sattviko is about pure food, and that's what we stand for. Every product that we sell in the market
Sure.
is pure from the core. I think we communicate the entire philosophy by multiple ways. So we have a lot of people on the ground who are influencers, for example. So these are the people who influence other people with what they hear, what they see, what they wear, what they consume. And I think we have a bunch of people who are a part of our communities
Sure.
who know what Sattviko is. So when we launch a new product, we kind of first take this product to them, get their feedback, and once they think that there is something which is really awesome in this product, we then go to the next level of consumers and offer these products to them. Sure. So between going to the consumer and actually launching the product, we first test it out with this bunch of influencers that we have. These are the kind of people who would be from a very normal lifestyle people, but
Sure.
they are like mothers in the families. They would be people who are going into events where the similar kind of people are coming in. So these are the kind of people who become our communication channels on one side. On the other side, I think the packaging, the entire story on the back of the packaging, the way our people on the ground are selling our products to the trade, to the consumer, this is all synced in the entire philosophy of Sattviko brand.
Okay, my last question then quickly, what next for you?
We are growing as one of the fastest growing FMCG food brand in India. I think in the next 2 years, what will become very important for us, can we actually become that company that gives the competition not just to any other brand from India, but even the large multinational brands who have actually occupied the entire FMCG market landscape in India. So you talk about very large companies, most of these are multinationals. Can we actually create the real Indian competition to these companies?
Okay, and we look forward to that.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much for your time here, Prasoon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, that's our show tonight. If you have any feedback for us, here's how you let us know. leadersoftomorrowtimesgroup.com is that email ID. Get in touch with us on social media as always. Sunanda_J or LOT_ET Now are our Twitter handles. Reach us on Facebook, Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now. Thanks for watching. Have a good night. As per the new tri-tariff order, you now have the power to choose and pay only for the channels you love. To keep watching Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now, call your cable or DTH operator and get the Times movies and news pack now.
Complete your TV viewing experience with the best of Hollywood entertainment and news. Get the Times movies and news pack at just 13 rupees. Ask your cable or DTH provider now.